Okay, so we're going to do another Ultimate Marvel team up book, and this time we pick up with issues number 4 and 5. This is the Iron Man and Spider-Man team up book. Now, here comes the problem with this particular series, but also this story arc as well. See, when it comes to Ultimate Marvel team up, it takes place right after the first story arc of Ultimate Spider-Man. Now, by this point in the series, I kind of want to say also the second story arc, but also the first story arc for Ultimate X-Men. I could be wrong there. But when it comes to Ultimate Iron Man, Ultimate Spider-Man team-up story arc, this one gets a tad bit confusing because when it comes to Ultimate Marvel Team Up, most of the books are technically not referenced in later Ultimate Marvel books, and some of them get retconned out of the timeline of the Ultimate Marvel universe completely. And so when it comes to this story arc, it was attempting to tell us the origin of Iron Man in the Ultimate Marvel universe. Here comes the problem with this origin right here, because some parts are technically true and other parts are not, because later on in the Ultimate Marvel universe, we'll get other stories that were trying to tell us the origin of Ultimate Iron Man. Matter of fact, I want to say in the year 2005, we got an Ultimate Iron Man miniseries that was telling us the origin of Ultimate Iron Man. But then later on, we got another Ultimate Iron Man series that retold the actual origin of Ultimate Iron Man. And matter of fact, some of the parts of the origin told here is technically referenced, but other parts just don't fit in perfectly when it comes to the actual timeline of the Ultimate Marvel universe. And you see what I mean as we go through this two-part story. And so when it comes to the early parts of today's video or today's storyline, we do pick up with Peter Parker currently reading off his latest paper that he wrote on Tony Stark. Now, when it comes to Peter Parker, the reason why he did a paper on Tony is because there is a competition currently going on at Midtown High to see which student will have the ability to write the best paper to have the chance to meet Tony Stark in person. And of course, Peter Parker is going to win the competition, except when it comes to Peter Parker's paper, it's really used as a way to give us the origin of Tony Stark. And when it comes to the first attempt in telling us the origin of Tony Stark in the Ultimate Marvel universe, you can see right off the bat why I say Ultimate Marvel Team Up is a very unique kind of series that's technically not used in most of the books of the Ultimate Marvel universe. For example, when it comes to the first part of the origin of Ultimate Iron Man, we are told that he was born to a great family, a mom, a dad, and he also had apparently 2 little sisters. Now that is red flag number 1, because later on in the Ultimate Marvel universe, we met his brother, his evil brother. But of course, in this book right here, his brother is not referenced at all. But on top of that, his sisters are also not referenced at all in later books either. And so it's kind of like, okay, what was the actual structure of this family? We also kind of find out that Tony Stark built his company from the ground up. It wasn't given to him by his father, but apparently in college he met Reed Richards. Another red flag, because in the Ultimate Marvel universe, Reed and the rest of the Fantastic Four were technically college kids. They were 18, 19, 20, possibly 21. I won't say even higher 25 because they were very young. But in the Ultimate Marvel universe, Iron Man was kind of like in his late 20s, early 30s. But on top of that, the Reed Richards in this book right here, you'll never see him again because this is not our Reed of the Ultimate Marvel universe. So another red flag. Now on top of that though, when it comes to his actual origin story, how he created the Iron Man suit, we are told that when he was in Guatemala with his cousin, apparently they were all kidnapped along with other passengers as soon as their plane arrived in Guatemala. Now they were captured by a terrorist group known as the Red Devils. And when it comes to the Red Devils, they wanted Iron Man, Tony Stark, to make them a bunch of weapons so that they're able to win their war in their country. Now, of course, that was the moment where you had Tony create his first Iron Man suit to help himself break free, but also other prisoners as well who being held against their will. Now, once he came back over to America, he continued the idea of building more and different kinds of Iron Man suits, or they call them Iron Tech. Yes, they call him Iron Tech. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. But either way, when it comes to Tony Stark, he's a well-known hero in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. But thing is, you have other companies who feel like Iron Man or Tony is being very selfish about the idea of not sharing how he was able to build a suit like that, an Iron Man suit, because other companies also want to do the same thing as well. But Iron Man is not sharing that idea with anybody at all. But getting back over to Peter Parker in his paper, because he was able to tell the first attempt of the origin of Ultimate Iron Man, he wins the competition, and now he has the chance to meet Tony Stark in person. But getting back over to Tony Stark, we currently see him right now in a meeting with a guy known as Mr. Golog. And I really hope I pronounced that name correctly, but it does look like Mr. Golog. Either way, when it comes to Mr. Golog, he is from Latveria. Now, when it comes to their conversation, it seems like Latveria wants to pay Tony Stark a huge amount of money to hopefully learn how he was able to build the Iron Man suit, because they also wanted the same thing as well in Latveria. Now, when it comes to their conversation, we are left to believe that there is a Doctor Doom in Latveria that we have not met yet in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. I'm going to tell you right now, at this point in time, there was no actual Doctor Doom, because the Ultimate Fantastic Four come way later in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Either way, when it comes to Mr. Tony Stark here, he does tell Mr. Golog, listen, I told you no on the phone. And matter of fact, I told you to stay in your country and do not even try to fly over here and try to convince me in person to give you my Iron Man suit. I told you to stay there in your country. And here you are now getting the same answer I told you on the phone, which is no. The thing is, you guys, you and your president, should work on giving your people better food to eat, rather than trying to get Iron Man suits over in your country. Now, once the meeting is done and you have Mr. Golog leave, that is when you have Tony Stark's hand begin to twitch. And this right here is a sign to one part of today's origin story that is actually true and used in other books in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. The idea that Tony Stark has a tumor in his brain. But getting back over to Spider-Man, he's trying to head over to the good old Stark International Science Expo event. Now, here's the thing, because this is why I say it takes place after the first story arc of Ultimate Spider-Man. Because while you have Peter Parker in his Spider-Man suit just swinging through the city, he tells us that after being bitten by the spider and of course becoming Spider-Man, his hunger got even bigger for food. And so homeboy truly eats. But on top of that, he is a teenager. At that point, and guys, I remember as a teenager, you were always hungry. So of course, this kid is even hungrier than most teenagers are. But either way, it kind of shows that this is still the early days of Peter Parker being Spider-Man in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. But he does arrive to the expo, and he cannot wait to meet Tony Stark to hopefully tell Tony how much he looks up to him. And so while you have Peter Parker go inside the expo, this man is literally in heaven right now. He is super excited because yes, this is a science expo, but at the same time, this is a Iron Man expo. So yes, Peter Parker loves science, but also this entire expo is for his idol. And Peter Parker is happy about the idea of meeting Iron Man. Now, while you have Peter Parker just walking around having a good old time, well, that is when someone literally blows the roof off the ceiling. Yes, you have a bunch of men in armor suits appear, and they're here to try to steal the Iron Man suit. Now, Fresh here is going to tell you guys right off the bat that these guys work for Latveria. Yes, they do, because let's not forget, earlier, Mr. Golog, who is from also Latveria, was trying to buy the Iron Man suit so that Latveria would be able to copy the suit. And so these guys in armor suits, better known as Mandriods, are here working for Latveria to hopefully get the Iron Man suit. Now you do have Iron Man appear, and you do have Iron Man try his best to fight against the Mandriods as a way to protect the innocent people. Now Peter Parker is not going to jump in just yet. Matter of fact, he'll jump in at the middle part of the second chapter. Either way, you have Iron Man feeling very confident about the idea that he should be able to handle these Mandriods. Now, unfortunately, thanks to his cockiness, Tony Stark gets messed up. I mean, literally, he flies in, he's all cocky, and they're all like, okay, you believe that you are able to take us down? Well, guess what? We made a special weapon that can shut down your suit, and now we're gonna move you onto our jet and fly you back over to Latveria to study that good old armor of yours so that we are able to copy it. Now, as we dive into the second chapter for today's video, we do pick back up with the origin of Iron Man once again. Now, here's the thing, because this part of the origin is actually kept when it comes to the idea of the complete story of Iron Man in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Everything we saw in the first chapter is really not kept at all. But things in the second chapter is actually kept when you have writers down the road coming back to retell the origin of Iron Man in the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, when it comes to the rest of his origin, it does deal with the idea like him going to Guatemala with his cousin Morgan, because his cousin Morgan did promise him a huge business deal with somebody in Guatemala. And we come to find out that business deal was most likely with the Red Devils, a terrorist group in Guatemala who wanted Tony Stark's tech as a way to help them take over their country. And so as soon as Tony and his cousin Morgan and a few other passengers on the plane arrived in the country, they were basically taken in as prisoners. And their goal was to force Tony to make the weapons they need to win their war against their enemies. Except when it came to Tony, he did not like the idea of helping out a group of terrorists be able to take over a country. And so he was not down with the idea of giving them weapons to help them win. And so they kill off his cousin Morgan, who was also a business partner. Now, after his cousin had died, they still try to tell Tony, you are going to make us weapons. Now, Tony does make weapons, but not for them. He makes the first Iron Man suit as a way to escape. And this part of his origin is technically kept when it comes to the idea of the actual story of Iron Man's origin. Oh, by the way, so is the tumor on his brain as well, is also kept, because when it comes to Mark Millar in the Ultimate series, he will reference the idea that Iron Man has brain cancer. Now, the rest of the book is really more of Iron Man and Spider-Man working together, because while you have Peter Parker running away to get some help, he does get blasted into another area, which of course gives him enough time to change into his Spider-Man outfit. And so while he is changing, you have the Mandriods trying to take Tony Stark away, and of course the Iron Man suit as well, to hopefully find a way to copy the suit. And so luckily for Iron Man, you do have Peter Parker come back as Spider-Man, and they are able to work together to fight off against the Mandriods. Well, at first it's just Spider-Man, but once Iron Man's suit does recharge or reboot and being able to help out Spider-Man, you have our two heroes, like I said earlier, being able to take down this group of Mandriods. And so it does look like the day is saved, and you have our two heroes go their separate ways. But this was the first time, technically, Spider-Man met Iron Man. Now, the story's not done all the way just yet, because the last 2 pages really show us Mr. Golog was working with somebody else. That somebody else was Nick Fury, because at this point Tony was not really helping out SHIELD at all. or apparently he wasn't at this point in the Ultimate Marvel universe. But when it comes to Nick Fury, his main goal was to hopefully have Mr. Golog find a way to get the Iron Suit away from Tony so that S.H.I.E.L.D. will be able to copy the suit as well for their own personal needs. Now, when it comes to Nick Fury, he told Mr. Golog, I will not help you, but if you are able to come to my country and get your hands on a suit, then you must also give me the copy of the suit to me as well. But unfortunately, Golog and the Mandriods failed. But because Golog Mandriods did attack an American citizen on American soil, they look like terrorists right now, and it could be taken as an act of war from Latveria. Either way, you have Nick send Golog away, and now we know that even back then, Nick Fury had plans on plans for many different things. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, y'all next time, later.